Hello, I'm Gretchen Baskerville, author of The Life-Saving Divorce, Hope for People Leaving Destructive Relationships. And today we hear Toni's story of great courage. This is part 2, where you hear the rest of Toni's story as she talks about her divorce from an angry, demeaning man and how she became financially stable, her incredible health improvements, and talking about people who judge you. She discusses safe pastors and churches and whether marriage-intensive retreats really work or not. Then she discusses regaining self-respect after emotional abuse and her treatment for PTSD using EMDR. We'll start by jumping into the middle of the interview. Loneliness then while you were married and loneliness after the marriage. After the divorce, I should say.
Right. I don't think I've been lonely a day since the divorce. My children have always been extremely important to me. I've got 6 kids, homeschooled them, loved every minute of it. That was a huge blow having to give that up once I had to go back to work full time. And I don't think there's been a night that I have gone to bed since he left in my bed by myself that I haven't thanked the Lord for a safe bed, a quiet bed, a place where I can rest. So,
Amen. Amen.
yeah.
I hear you. I hear you. I always ask about loneliness, and I find that the women coming out of 20-year marriages and the men coming out of 20-year marriages don't usually feel any loneliness after the divorce because they were already so abandoned. They were already, and that
Already.
person had become such a threat to them or a threat
Yep.
to the peace
Yep.
in the home.
Yep.
It's the younger women, the women who get out with the little kids, who at least, although maybe he wasn't around and he wasn't very helpful, at least he was an extra pair of hands, an extra driver's license, and an extra set of wheels who could, run to the grocery store and get them something or, fill in. But I find that the women who've had the long marriages, yeah, not very much loneliness there at all. Yeah.
No, and I've been doubly blessed because God knew. Of course he knew, but he was preparing so many things in the background that I didn't know that he was preparing until afterwards. I can look back and say, oh, look at what you already had done for me. Look at what you already had ready. Oh, thank you, Father.
Now you have stayed at the same church that you attended before.
And so does he.
Oh, and so does he. Wow. Okay. So tell me your thoughts on that.
It's been really hard and I'm still struggling. I didn't think he would come back to church, and he did. It's one of the only places that my kids actually get to see their dad. Is they'll see him as they walk in, hi Dad, and they'll see him as they leave, see you later Dad, and that's about all the contact they have. If he comes, he doesn't come all the time, but he comes most of the time. I have before I separated, I think I met with my pastor, who was a new pastor that didn't really have any connection with any of the counseling or any of that kind of stuff. He didn't know us that well, but I had already been doing my own counseling, but I felt like I needed to go and just talk to him and explain to him what I was thinking of doing. And he blew me out of the water. He said, absolutely, you need to separate. There's nothing left for you to do. He
Hallelujah.
could have been more supportive. I was shocked. My previous pastor would not have ever done that. He said, I told him about some of the things I discovered in counseling. And he said, yeah, you have done everything you can. There are some marriages that are not redeemable and you need to do this. So he's been wonderful. But then after I separated, my very best friend, her husband, who is also one of my very closest friends, he is also one of the deacons in the church. He was so angry with me for separating that he wouldn't speak to me for months. And that was really devastating. I understood that he was friends with my husband, but he knew about the abuse. He knew how bad it had. I mean, of course, not to the details, but he's been around us for 20 years. We've done couples Bible studies, 3 couples, them and myself and my husband, and then one other couple had done couples Bible studies together for years. He had seen how the only reason my husband would agree to that was because there was food and there was fun. The Bible study part was he would just tolerate because his buddies got to be there and he got to laugh and be the big man. So, And he knew all of that, and still he was furious with me and completely sided with my ex. That was devastating. That one hurt really bad. And then quite a few of the other men of the church just completely gave me the cold shoulder. A different friend had a tragedy in her life a few months later, and which involved losing her husband. And so then she was also a single mom just a few months after I had separated. And the contrast couldn't have been clearer. I mean, they just showed up on her doorstep. They not built her a deck, but they put up all the guard on her deck. They worked in her garden. They did this and that and all these things to surround her with all the support and the love they possibly could. Not one word of offer of any of that to me, not one word. And so that contrast was pretty disheartening. Not that I begrudged her for a single second, which of course I did not, but it just highlighted how unsupportive they were of me and my decision.
Right.
But by that point I knew I didn't need their approval, but it's made going to church there, because I know of that underlying lack of support, makes going to church there very difficult. So I had started to pull away out of some of the different ministries I was involved with before COVID. And now since COVID, it's been a huge, huge relief not to go. So my struggle will be now that church is starting up again and what to do. I haven't quite decided that, because to my children, it's still very important. And we've always been, if the doors are open, we were there. It didn't matter what it was for. If the doors were open, we were always there. So, I mean, that's where we had our homeschool group and our kids club and our Bible studies and our prayer meetings and our, all that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
I get that that's really difficult. And, it's tough when you've got a church where some really important people really support you, and others just ghost you or erase you or treat you like you're not important, even though you've been a pillar of the community for all these decades. And what advice do you have? I know you're going through it yourself, but what is your current thinking on how to pick safe friends and safe churches?
Well, for me, I guess I go back to the fact that I can, without a doubt, say, I know this is what God led me to. And so therefore, talk to him about it. Have you prayed about this? If anybody was to really come face to face with me, that good friend's husband did eventually come to me and apologized in tears and said he was very wrong. He was very sorry. It took many months for that to happen. But, and I just had to say, I had to obey God and not man, and go back to Acts 4. That's what he told me to do. And I don't have to be accountable to you all. Not that I've said any of this, but these are conversations I've had in my head, recognizing it's not my job to please them. That's not my job. My job is to obey the Lord. But it still makes going to church there uncomfortable. Plus, I'm also so struggling with all these messages that I thought I was being very careful who I listened to and always checking it with the Bible, but still I had a lens that I was looking through. And now that lens has changed, it's made me really more, what's the word? Like you can tell, I'm still struggling with a skeptical, or when I listen to somebody preach or teach, I'm a lot more, well, are you sure? Where did you get that from? I'm not quite sure what the words are.
Well, when they give you generalizations that they apply to all of us, they just don't understand that a lot of people sitting out there, either in the radio audience or in the pews, that is exactly the wrong advice to give them.
Right.
So I agree with you. There's a lot of Christians, both men and women, after divorce, who cannot darken the door of a church because they just know that if the topic of marriage comes up, that pastor is going to say something really hurtful and really ridiculous, like if you walk away from your marriage, you're walking away from Jesus, or divorce never makes anything better, it just gives you different problems, and just so unthinking, so mindless, so naive and delusional on their part,
and not true. And it's just not true. I mean, they're just not. That's not the truth.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a real battle for me right now. And so how much do I go just for my kids because it's so important to them, and it's such a, how many changes can I throw at them,
Right.
or how much do I need to say, but this just isn't the right time for me to go. We've had that conversation. I've had that conversation with my kids saying, I'm pulling back a little bit right now just because I need to. It doesn't feel like a safe place for me. It's a good place. It's a good place for you guys, but church is not the bottom line. God is the bottom line. My relationship with the Lord is the bottom line, and that's still good and strong. And so I've been trying to have those conversations with them without rocking their world too much.
Yeah. Oh no, I love how you're thinking that through. Because you're just weighing each thing, and I think that's brilliant. I think that's really great. Let me ask you about completely change topics here. I want to talk about finances. One of the biggest questions women have uh, is how will I support myself? I've got to start life from square one. I was a homeschool mom or, a stay-at-home mom. What do I do? How do you deal with that? And how would you answer that?
Well, again, God was going before me and preparing me. I had two part-time jobs, and I had to handle all the finances. I had to do everything because he wouldn't do anything. And so I'm balanced budget. I tried to always keep the checkbook, watching it so carefully because there was very little coming in. And so, but with the second extra job that I got, during that time when I first got that job, he had a different trip away to go visit his family and was gone for quite a while and had threatened a couple times that he wasn't going to come back, to which I prayed, oh God, please don't let him come back. Please, please, please don't let him come back. But during that time, I talked to my friend at the bank. I love small towns. And she told me how to set up a separate account that was just with my name on it that he would never even know about it. And so I had started at that point just tucking away the money from my second extra job. It was very little, but if you tuck it away every month, it built. And so I had just a tiny bit there that I'd saved up. And then I also had my nursing degree that I could fall back on. And so once we separated, then I started checking into going back to school to renew my license. Went to another friend who worked at the workforce center who was able to get me a grant so I could get my whole recertification cost paid for that, and even cost for some uniforms and shoes and the whole 9 yards. So within 3 months of us being separated, and he did agree to pay a small amount of child support when we separated, which was quite surprising to me, but he didn't balk too much at that, a little bit, but not too much. And within 3 months of our separation, I had gotten my RN recertified, and within 4 months I had a full-time job. And then within 6 months after that, I had a different job offer, which is the job I'm currently doing, which is just a dream job. I can work 4 days a week. I'm working from home, so I can even still be home with my kids right now. Part of the time I have to be in the office, but since COVID, I've been home with the kids. And so
This is amazing.
another miracle,
Yeah.
absolutely another miracle. And then the reason I got this job was because of things that God had set in place years ago through the first part-time job that I had. So
So
he had
looking
been doing
back,
things.
you can see God's hand in each step. That's great.
Oh, absolutely, without a doubt.
That's
Yeah,
neat.
he promises he will never leave us and he will never forsake us, and he is absolutely true to his word.
Yep, and that's what held me through too. That's such a great Bible verse, and so many just hanging on to God's Bible promises.
Oh, plastered all over my bedroom, my office, my desk, my bathroom. You can't go anywhere in my house without seeing silly little recipe cards with Bible verses everywhere.
Yep,
That's how.
that's what I did too. I had them on my refrigerator and on my mirror and everything just to
Yep.
remind me,
Yep.
he'll never leave me or forsake me. He's walking with me. I needed all of that.
Yep.
Another question for you. Talk to me about marriage retreats and marriage intensives. When would they be good for someone or a couple? And when are they just not the right thing?
I hear them advertised on the radio right now. I literally this winter I heard them, and I wanted to call the radio announcers and say, stop, you guys just need to stop. This is because they're reading the promo saying, you know, these are for all kinds of marriages. If your marriage is great, it'll just make it better. And if it's struggling, it'll help you just overcome all your struggles. And I wanted to scream. I suppose I've known quite a few people that have gone. I've never known anybody that it's helped.
Wow.
Now, and that's a strong statement, but they are, like you say, there's so many generalizations that are spoken of during those marriage. I just went to the one weekend away, but the intentions are good. I absolutely believe that, but unless both people are truly wanting to commit to work on the issues and to continue to work on the issues, it just feels like it gives false hope. I don't know. It's too short. It's lots of marshmallows and cotton candy, lots of feel-good stuff. I don't think it truly, unless there's two really healthy, strong people who are really in that perfect little triangle of, getting closer to God and getting closer to each other. Like I said, most of my friends that have gone they're all pretty much still married, not all of them, but did not find them to be at all helpful. In fact, sometimes very, very painful and harmful in the long run.
In what ways?
I think mostly because of the disappointment, of the false expectations and hopes that were dashed, the promises that were made that were not kept, the kind of just do this, if you just do this, this, and this, then everything will be good. And so the one person's trying so hard to do this plus ABC and this plus ABC and this, you know what I'm saying, and the other person just kind of taking advantage of it and not doing their part. And so therefore those crushed hopes are really, really tough.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think in young marriages, in early marriages, especially if they've never been taught communication skills or negotiation skills, those kinds of things are really helpful, but they depend completely on having two people who actually have the best interests of the other one at heart, who really care about each other's well-being and are willing to sacrifice their own comfort for that other person. But when all the sacrificing is being done on one person's side and little or nothing on the other person's side to make that marriage safe and loving, there's just nothing you can do. And I agree, it does promote a false hope, and which could be really destructive. And I think the same thing is true for people who marry someone maybe who has, a porn issue or a sexual infidelity kind of issue. They think, well, once this person is married, once the wedding ring is on, this person's going to shape up and they're going to become a better person. That porn problem or that child attraction problem is going to be over. And they go through the wedding and it is not over. In fact, it's back with a vengeance. And yet, as devout Christians, we feel like, I don't want a divorce. I don't want to be seen as that quitter who took the easy way out. So we double down and just, try harder. So thank you. I appreciate your insights on that. Talk to me about finding self-respect, because when you've been ignored and erased and treated kind of like a slave, you don't have a great sense of self-respect or personal boundaries. No. How did you rebuild that?
Still am rebuilding it. Definitely finding that to be a challenge, and been doing some counseling, a little bit of EMDR therapy, and that was one of the things that we really were able to uncover, was that sense of failure, of not enough. I'm not enough to be a good mom. I'm not enough an employee. I'm not enough as a daughter. I'm not enough as a friend. Just that message that I had spinning in the back from those years of no eye contact, no acknowledgement, no respect, no communication, no nothing. So that's been a real battle. I've had to really try to replace that with, I am enough. I am a child of God. I'm a daughter of the King. He rescued me. He saved me. He sees me as beautiful, as perfect, as redeemed, as forgiven. Have I made mistakes? Daily. Do I need forgiving? Minute by minute. But that does not equate with my worth as a daughter of the King. I've had to have some real honest conversations with my employer, my boss, who's a dear friend that I've known for years. But I've had to tell her I'm in recovery right now, and the messages I hear are, you're not enough. So when I do things and I make a mistake, I'm going to really overreact. I apologize in advance, and I'm working really hard not to do that. But that's the message that I'm hearing. It's not your fault. You are not sending that to me. But just so you understand that I'm struggling with that, and I'm going to continue to heal, but it's going to take me a while. I don't get through 22 years of that message without it. It's going to take some time. I've had that message real openly with my children. This is how I'm feeling, guys. I feel like an absolute failure as a mother. It's a horrible feeling. And I'm not saying that so you guys will say, oh, you're great, Mom. Just so you understand kind of what's going on behind the scenes. And I'm working really hard to replace that message with, but I am enough. These are the children God has given me. And every day I wake up to try to be the best mom I can. And every day I will need God's grace to do that. And then the next day I will do it again. So trying to have as many conversations to be as open as I can with that, to remind myself, and then to help others have a little grace with me as I'm trying to heal.
That's so beautiful. I love your story and how you're talking with your kids and with your employer. You're so fortunate to have someone who is a trusted friend, and that's just amazing.
But like I said, I'm naturally an optimistic person, and so I'm finding that kind of coming back a little bit. But I had gotten very, very, very deep down into that mire, that miry pit where I could hardly see God anymore. Partially because I had prayed for so long, God, please do whatever it takes. Heal my marriage, bring my husband back to you. And he said, no. And all those verses of, just ask with faith. And if you keep on knocking and you keep on praying and you keep on, and so that was a huge, I don't know. It wasn't that I lost my faith at all, but I lost a lot of confidence, I guess, or maybe I'm not sure what the right word is. So yeah, I went deep into a very deep, deep, black, dark place where the only reason I got up every day was because of the kids. And I had to provide for them now. Now I am a single mom. Now I have no choice. I have to get up. But I had barely could function. It was hard to sleep because I would wake up in a panic with just all that tension and that anxiety and the fear and the what ifs, and everything looked so dark. It was just this dark, dark tunnel. So I did have to go back for some counseling afterwards. And like I said, work on a little bit of EMDR and some other cognitive behavioral therapy things, and baby steps forward of just continuing to try to take those truths that I've known for so long and refresh them, and give myself lots and lots of grace of it's okay, and this isn't going to be forever, and you are going to make it. And spending a lot of time in my garden praying and meditating, and I kind of shut down for a little while, but I couldn't completely shut down because I still have, the 3 kids at home and a full-time job that I have to do. And so, but it was hard. It was really, really, there's no doubt about it. But somewhere, I'm not sure, somebody told me, somewhere I read, I spent a lot of time reading and listening to different blogs like yours and Natalie's and Leslie's and other people's that kept on giving me hope that, it's going to be hard. And it's going to be dark, but it doesn't last forever. And somewhere, and I hung on to it with everything I had, was that at kind of like the 2-year point for a lot of people is when things really start to change. And I won't be at the 2-year point I was at the 2-year point this last February, so that's what, 4 or 5 months ago, for the separation. I won't be at the 2-year point for the divorce until November. So I still have hope that things can really continue to turn.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. The fact that you're smiling, the fact that you're laughing and joking around, that says you're well on your way. And it does. It these first couple of years are just bleak, and
Oh,
the too much transition. I mean, any
right.
normal person could handle, a move, change in children's schooling. In fact, I want to ask you about that. Change in finances, change in your status in the community, especially at church. You could handle that if it was spread over 10 years. When it's all
Right.
smashed into one
Oh,
year, it's
yeah.
way too much. And that's why we struggle so much with divorce, because it's too many extremely big changes all at once. And yet, most of us, the vast majority of us, 7 in 10 come out happy or very happy on the other side,
Yep. Yep.
and we make it through. But when it's going on, it feels like it's going to kill us.
Right. And I had
So
major issues mixed in with all of that, that my body was just in major shutdown. That's really, really improved in the last year too. But for the
I
first
was
year,
going to
that was,
ask you, tell us about the health.
I developed fibromyalgia,
Mm,
um, or could have possibly been, that's one that it's a diagnosis that it's, you rule everything else out. My
right, right.
natural thought it was probably some Lyme's in there because I live in a very rural area on a farm with lots of deer ticks and things. So there could have been some Lyme's, it could have been fibromyalgia, it could have been some of the depression, anxiety. Anyway, all together to the point that I was just in tremendous, tremendous pain. Um, and even to the point that I was literally crawling sometimes to try to get ready for work in the morning because I was in such pain. So now I'm back to walking and working and exercising, and was building a fence with my son this weekend, and I've got a humongous garden that I'm able to work in without any side effects. And yeah, it's been a
Wow.
tremendous turnaround. I've had to make some dietary changes because as we get older, our bodies don't tolerate things as well. So there was some of those issues going on. It's been, kind of a lot of detective work on my part. But anyway, compared to a year ago, it's another miracle that God has done of healing and restoration. So I'm not back to where I was 10 years ago, but I'm 10 years older too. So
Right.
yeah, really good
I
though.
want to say something for those who are watching. About two-thirds of the people I interview, and this is completely non-scientific, so I'm not trying to make a medical claim here, but about two-thirds say that their health has improved dramatically. Emotional health and physical health have
Yep.
not that
They're
everything has completely gone away, but
no,
it's
but they're
it's
so
a made
interwoven.
yeah.
Right. I kept trying to find a physical cause before I separated. I was trying all sorts of different things to find out what's going on. Why am I deteriorating? What's the matter? Because I've always been a very physically active person, walk a couple miles a day, huge garden, big farm, very active, healthy eating. And I just kept getting worse and worse. And no matter what I was doing, it wasn't getting any better. And I couldn't figure it out. Well, my body was saying, enough. You
Yeah.
can't live like this.
Yeah.
You can't continue to put yourself under that tremendous stress and pain. There's a breaking point. You can do it for a while, but then there's a point when your body says, I'm done.
Right.
And I really do. I really think I would have died if I hadn't gotten out physically. I mean, I was getting that physically broken down.
No, I totally believe you, because I hear this so often. And for the 1 in 3 that, don't see a big improvement health wise, they've just simply told me, don't feel sorry for me. This is the result of being beaten down for
Yep.
so many years. When you've had this go on 20, 30, 40 years,
Yeah.
you're just going to have, the book, The Body Keeps the Score
Oh,
by
excellent.
Dr. Bessel van der Kolk,
Yeah. In fact,
talks about,
I heard him do a 2-day conference. I got to listen in on it for 2 days in May, and it's yeah, that trauma. Your body cannot handle that continuing trauma. It's going to do the damage. I didn't understand that connection, but that book, I would so highly recommend it. It's fantastic.
yeah,
Very
it really is.
eye-opening.
I've got a few quotes from him in my book, and they are totally eye-opening. I want to ask you about EMDR because a lot of people are completely unfamiliar with that. And it's usually for post-traumatic stress.
I'm sure that I developed some post-traumatic stress. I was having a really hard time with the anxiety, depression, with sudden noises, with sleep issues, with all sorts of things. And so I pursued EMDR because of reading about that. That's what helped me to understand the failure message that I didn't even know was running as the tape in the background, that I was filtering everything through that EMDR. I was able to bring that forward and then replace that with a message of I am enough. I am enough. I am enough. And we would talk through some memories and then do this EMDR therapy. It's very different than just conversational therapy. It's very effective, but I'm not sure. It obviously doesn't work for everybody for everything, but for post-traumatic stress, it's a quite effective therapy.
Yeah. I've been hearing great things about it from other people. And again, it's not a cure-all. Nothing is. But,
No.
you know, it really helped people replace fear messages, inadequacy messages, despair
Yes.
messages with more hope, more confidence, more optimism. And that's really a
And some
lifeline for people.
messages that you don't even know are there. You don't
Wow.
even recognize that they're there. And so it's hard to address them if you can't recognize that that's what's the background music that's playing, that you're not even hearing anymore because it's just that's the norm that you've been hearing it for so long.
Right.
And so, I would highly recommend exploring it if there's some post-traumatic stress or those kind of things going on.
That's great. Talk to me about sexuality, singleness, and dating again.
My thoughts at this point are, I've asked God to be my Boaz. I've always adored the story of Boaz, where Ruth was, she had nothing. She had nothing to offer. She just came and she lay at Boaz's feet, and he covered her and he protected her and he provided for her and he loved her. And he redeemed her. He redeemed her. He paid the price for her in the land from that other cousin of Naomi's. And so just for right now in my life, I've asked God to be my Boaz, to just cover me and to provide for me and my children, to protect us, to redeem us from all. God says that he can take the years the locusts have stolen and give them back, that he promises that he can take all things and make them good. And those are the promises that I'm standing on, that he can take all this pain and all this tough times, because there was, of course, many good things in the midst of that, and redeem it and make it good. At this point, I have absolutely no interest of having a relationship with a sexual marriage relationship. None whatsoever. Mostly that's because I don't trust myself. But again, just like God made it so absolutely clear how to pray and how to make this happen, then it would have to be something like that again. And then again, I would know there would be no second guessing. There would be no doubts. There would be no fears, because it's God going ahead. And so at this point, he's my Boaz. And if he wants to make anything different, then that's up to him. But I'm not pursuing anything, or I'm content.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
God doesn't love your marriage more than he loves you. If there's somebody out there that's listening that's really feeling like they don't have any choice, he loves you. He loves you. He wants you to be treated like a daughter of the King, and you don't deserve, you're not stuck. You have choices. Don't stay because you don't feel like you have any choice. You made your bed, so you have to lie in it. That's a lie. And don't believe that. It's not the truth. Not that marriage isn't hard work, because of course it is. And not that marriage doesn't make us holier or better if we both work together. It can, but it's not a place where people are called to suffer and die. That's not what marriage is about. So that's, I guess, the message is God loves you more than he loves your marriage.
I love that. I love how you said that. That's just fabulous. I look at people and say, do you really think God cares about your marital status, that checkbox, more than he cares about you and your kids? No, the answer is no. He
And
loves you.
my kids are so happy now. We can laugh, we can play, we can joke around. It's like a completely different home. It's joyful. We enjoy being here. I just can't. Yeah, it's good. It's so good, and we're blessed. God has blessed us in this.